Hi, my name is Robin Meyer, and I'm with the East Cobb Quilters Guild in Marietta, Georgia. I'm here today with Sally Joerger, who is also a member of our guild. And I'm talking to Sally today in another of our series of Who We Are, some recordings and articles in our newsletter and on our website that are designed to introduce us to the rest of the quilting community and to the community as a whole. We hope you enjoy these series, and we hope that you enjoy learning a little bit more about us. So I'll start us off today. Sally, if you could just give us a sense of how you came to quilting. Where did it all begin?
I went to a quilter's retreat with my sister, and I wasn't into quilting at the time. She was. And she gave me a bag of scraps and said, "Here, sew these." So I did. And I started organizing them by color. She took them and made a quilt. And I thought, I can do that. And so that was my first quilt, making strips and sewing them together. And I loved it.
So is that one of the original strips, or is that a recreation?
No, that's a 2 or 3 series after, because
Okay.
I'm in the process of making another quilt like that, hopefully.
So did you sew before then?
Yes, I have made my living sewing in some manner for my whole life.
Really, really?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
I started out, I sewed costumes when I was in college. When I got out of college, I worked for a fabric store for a long time. I then worked for another costume shop and sewed on my own clothes, clothes for others. I had a mail order business for massage supplies because I was a massage therapist for a while. I've done kind of like everything in sewing, except art, and that's kind of why I went to GSU. That's not your question yet, but that's why I went, because I have done lots of things, but not art oriented. So
I see. Okay. And what kinds of quilts did you usually make before you started going to GSU?
quilts, did you
Yes.
say?
What kind of quilts? Seems like scrap quilts is what your sister got you
Yeah,
started with.
yes, scrap. I wasn't really into taking traditional patterns and making quilts particularly. I got some inspiration from books at our library. Didn't make that many. Very slow quilter, but mainly patchwork scrapping.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, so what got you interested in going to GSU? And tell us about the program you're enrolled in and where
Okay.
things are today.
A friend of mine got a master's degree for free at GSU, because if you're over 62, you can attend classes for free, either auditing or toward a degree. I thought this was really neat. And then I met Kathy Smith at our guild, who was in the fine arts art program at GSU with a concentration in textiles. And I thought, well, this is for me. So um, you have to have graduated from college. And so there's a lot of hoops to jump through. You have to have all your resume and what is those? Not
Transcripts.
resume, a transcript. Yes. And apply, and even the application fee, I understand, is waived. And so I applied and got in, and have taken art courses ever since.
And so how long ago was that?
I think it was 2016.
Okay.
And to when you enter into art, there's a lot of foundation courses you have to take, which I had none of. So there was 2D design, 3D design, which is sculpture. We had drawing. We had I can't remember the other things, but after you pass a certain amount of those that are required, then you choose your concentration, and that's when I chose textiles, which was obvious. So
Right, right.
okay.
So what have those textiles courses been like?
Well, the introduction to textiles was dying. I've had silk screening, I've had knitting, crocheting, weaving. I've had heat techniques, which I thought I'd hate because it only dealt with polyester, and I absolutely loved it. I don't use it in my there's directed study, of which we had a quilt. That's a very particular focus that's not taught consistently. And there was one on quilts that was really a lot of fun. We made one of the projects we had to do was make quilts out of, or quilt squares out of unusual or different fabrics. And I made one out of fake fur, and people call it this Ernie from Sesame Street quilt. Really funny looking.
So are there other non-traditional students in your classes, or are you the only one?
Well, I'm usually the only one. When I first went, I thought I've got so much to learn. And then when I went, I realized they can learn from me as well as I from them. That really surprised me. I usually tooting my own horn. I usually finish things off very well because I have the time and I know what it means to do that. And I think that's a real eye opener for some students, to see that their projects can be shown in a better light than sometimes they are because of time or money or lack of interest. I don't know. So,
and I would expect among the younger students too, sometimes it's lack of confidence.
Yes, possibly. I think back when I was in college and I thought, really? They're doing great. The thing I notice about them is I'm very technically proficient. That's just my thing. But they're very creative. And that's what I get from them. They don't know the rules, or they choose to break whatever. And I enjoy that, being that part of the process and seeing what they do, because it's unusual to me.
So how close are you to your master's degree?
Well, I'm not getting a master's. It's an undergraduate degree. Master's would require too much work, believe me. And I had intended to get a degree. I have a great GPA, but I have to take some courses that I missed in my undergraduate college, like English composition and science and a science lab. And I'm rethinking getting a degree because I can keep taking classes for forever, as long as they have me. So I'm in the middle of what I'm trying to do about that. So I'm not sure.
Well, I can understand that. A science lab seems pretty unattractive to me.
I go there and do the work. I'm in a class right now, excuse me, where I work at home and I have to attend a class 3 times. I have to show something 3 times. So that really works for me, working at home, because I've got everything there. Yeah.
Right. So how have your studies influenced your quilt making? I mean, it seems as if the range of materials that you are working with far exceed what we typically see at the Guild Show and Tell. We haven't seen a fake fur quilt. In fact, I don't think you brought that to show. No,
it wasn't a quilt. It was a square. If you would like to see it, I will bring it. It's kind of funny. What I really needed was the creativity part, the design part, and I'm still stumbling with that a little bit. But I really enjoy color, as you can probably tell. And I learned a lot about color and color theory and what it means. And I really dive deeply into Joan Wolfram and the whole 3-in-1 color tool. And that is what. So how have I changed my quilting? I'm not sure. It's expanded. It's getting me out of to do other things and be a little more creative, which is what I think I need. So, or I want.
Well, it sounds like that was your goal in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, I also recall you telling me at some point that you have a quote unquote day job as well.
Yes.
That you do you want to talk about that a little bit too? I think that's an interesting juxtaposition to your educational pursuits.
I work for Marty Michelle, sewing a lot of blocks and quilts for her, and editing a lot of her Free Block Friday kinds of things. And I have learned so much because I am constantly binding, I'm constantly layering, I'm constantly quilting, I'm constantly cutting the templates. So that's just been kind of added to my skill level and understanding of what quilting's all about.
And it seems like that work would be more on the technique and technical side of things
It is.
and more traditional quilt making.
It is. It is. And I want to make an aside here that you can cut out if you want to, but I also work for the when they need extra help for the Alliance Theater doing costumes.
Oh, cool.
And and the line, I don't know whether anybody's worked in a costume shop, but professionally, they trace the seam line and then just cut big jagged around it. It could have a 2-inch extra piece of fabric. It could have a 1.5. It just so they can alter costumes later on or alter them as they're fitting people. So for a couple of months there, I was working at Marty with exact 1/4-inch seams, and I was going to the costume shop with these big gob things where I lined up the seam allowance, and it was
whack, whack, whack.
it's a very different kind of mindset how to sew and what you sew on, and it was kind of like, okay, what am I doing today? So it's kind of fun.
Well, I can imagine that would be really mind-blowing because I mean the whole point of costume is to create the illusion to the audience.
Yeah,
it could be all raw edges. I mean,
well, oh no, it's not.
It could be as long as it looks good from the first row.
Well, I will tell you, they are extremely professional. I mean, they make men's suits that rival men's suits. I mean,
Really?
it's beautiful work, and it is not a throne. Yeah.
Okay, well, shame on me for having
for assuming that.
Well, no, I think that's really interesting. I think you have spanned some really dramatically different facets of things that you can do with fabric. And, not too many of us sew as a hobby, but not very many of us sew as a vocation. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. And I've also taught it, so that's another aspect of it. And I taught for 15 years in a university. So
in costume,
sewing.
Okay.
Yeah, basic for a fashion design curriculum. Yeah.
How cool is that? How cool is that? So what are your goals as far as your quilt making is concerned? Where would you like it to take you?
I like the process, and once the quilt is made, that's fine with me. The longer it has since I made it, the less I'm interested in doing it, out of here, let's make the next one. So I'm interested in just the process and making colors fit together, and I love to deal with the colors of fabric, etc. So I don't really feel like I have a goal. I am required, as far as GSU, if I do graduate, to have make a portfolio and have a show as part of the people who graduate that year. And I'm kind of interested in doing that to put myself out there as an artist and have it evaluated or have a kind of group of work. I have entered a couple of shows, some which I get in, some of which I don't, but I'm not sure I'm going anywhere. May I make an aside? My sister quilts and has for 20-25 years, and so the whole family is covered. And so I don't need quilts for nieces and nephews and brothers and sisters. So I'm branching out to friends.
Well, that's probably a little bit of a relief, actually, not to have that production demand on your side.
Yeah.
So when you've entered shows, what's been your experience with that? Do you see lots of differences in what various shows are looking for, and do you try to match your entry to certain shows and not other shows?
Well, the shows, yes, are very particular, and they generally have a theme, and sometimes they enter. So a lot of things are not suitable for that. For instance, the CIFA show has a 12-inch square foot show. Square foot show. That's what I mean. And that's open to a lot of variety. It's not necessarily quilts. But it has to be that size. Other shows have a theme or something, and you can make it or not. Some of them are juried, some of them are not. I generally have not entered too many quilts. I've entered other things I've done at GSU at shows, because one of the things I do, I think I showed at our quilt guild, was the 12-inch block that I made out of sheer fabric and fabric. And I've entered that into art shows because it's kind of sculpture, not necessarily quilts, but quilt related. So
Right. So when you're entering shows that are not traditional quilt shows, and I would put the guild show in that category, then you have a lot more flexibility as to the form. You don't have to have batting. You don't have to worry about boundaries and things of that nature.
Yes.
So that frees up the creative side and the material side, I would think.
It does.
Has all your work so far been two-dimensional, or have you branched out into three-dimensional work?
Well, I've done one of the heat techniques I did was was more or less three-dimensional. It's not a flat piece. It's got a lot of texture to it. And that's my favorite piece, and I have it hanging in my living room, framed. I mean, it's a lovely piece. So what was your question again? Sorry.
The three-dimensional work as opposed to two-dimensional work.
Yeah, so far it's kind of been three-dimensional more.
Okay. Well, I know you've been a member of the guild for a while. What brought you to the guild?
I retired, and I went to I started quilting, and I wanted to be a part of a group that did that. And I have a friend, Dorothy Green, who had joined the East Cobb Quilt Guild, and she had done all the research about which guild brought in national teachers and was viable and was really the most dynamic guild. And I thought, well, she joined it, I'll join that. So we that's the one for me. I don't need to do any research. So that's why I joined the guild, to be exposed to a bigger group of people who quilted. And I really do like the national speakers that we have that bring a much wider perspective to what's available, what's going on in the guild.
Right. I do too. That and the quilt show is what had me hooked. Those two things together. So aside from the national teachers, what else do you find helpful about the guild?
Well, I worked in the library for a number of years, and I love books. I could turn my camera and there would probably be 100 books on the wall. I really like flipping through books and even magazines that people put on the table for free to see what's been created and get ideas from that. That's kind of, I like the free fabric and the community service. I like community service. As I said, I don't need to make any quilts for my family. So it's kind of fun making a quilt to see what happens and then giving it away to somebody who will enjoy it. The process is important, and the community service key part of that is really key to, I think, why a lot of people join our guild, or so I've heard.
Yes, I think it is too. I think it is too. So what's your advice to new members if you just sort of found us online and dropped in at St. Anne one day and see this whole room full of people?
Sign up for something. That's when you get to know people. Go to a workshop or more. Even if it's not your technique, you might find somebody who's sitting with you who has interests similar to you. You might find a friend. So sign up and get involved immediately. That's how you meet people. It's not just come to meetings and then leave.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. When I joined, was right as volunteers were being asked for or being recruited for the next quilt show, and I signed up to hang quilts and I don't know, a couple of other things, and it was great, you know, until for those months before the show came. I didn't have a friend to go with like you did, but for those months up until the show, I knew a few people, but they all seemed to have a friend already and didn't seem to be looking for another one. And but once I'd hung quilts with people, it was like, you know, we were bound at the hip ever.
Oh yeah. I think anytime you work for that quilt show, yes.
Yeah, I think
an experience you experience together with a whole group of people, and
yeah, it's a great triumph when you see it all put
Yes.
together, and
Yeah.
you had a
Mhm.
hand in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's sort of a piece of guild membership too, because just like, the satisfaction you receive from working in the library, um, when the doors open for the meeting and people come in, you've got a role and a place, and when the doors close and
Mhm.
people leave, you can
Mhm.
pat yourself on the back for a job well done. It was a good overall meeting, and you were a part of it.
Part of it. If I may also add, working in the library, you get to talk, people talk to you. They can come up because they just want to talk, or you can discuss a book, or it's a really nice way for visitors to kind of be interactive with people, but without too much. There's an intermediary of a book.
Right.
And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So if you're at all interested in a non-threatening way of getting involved, I'm sure Merle will be happy. I'm recommending the library.
I think, the last meeting I went to, the library was just swarming with people. So I think
Yeah.
it's gotten to be quite a big deal. And I think you and Devin were a big part of that. So hats off. All right. Well,
Thank you.
is there anything else that we should have talked about that you think we didn't?
Oh, no, thank you. I think you've asked good questions. I hope, I hope I've answered them and if anybody has any questions, please come up to me during the meeting. I
All
love
right.
to talk. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this, and I think our viewers are going to enjoy it too. So,
Thank you, Robin.
all right. Thank you.
All right. Mhm.